Hey nerds, what's up? Today we're doing something that involves making a drink, and talking about books. So today I wanted to talk about some books that were not my favorite in 2020. I do talk in the vlog about what's going on book Twitter right now because Gavin, in case you don't know who that is, I'll link him up above. He posted a worst books / most disappointing books of 2020 and the whole world blew up for some reason. People do these videos every year. I don't know why people were upset with Gavin specifically, but I decided that I wanted to film one. I hadn't really thought about my worst books yet. I was kind of waiting to see until the end of the year, but now I just felt like, why not? This is the perfect time. Am I right? So yeah, I have 7 books that made it to my worst / most disappointing list for various reasons. So we'll just get right on into that. So these are not necessarily in any particular order. They're vaguely in an order of when I read them first to most recent, but even that is a little bit mixed up. So yeah, starting off with Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I read this book originally as part of the read-along that was happening oh so long ago. And it was like a read-along for all of Brandon Sanderson's books, and I only read this first one. It ended up kind of flopping. I didn't participate further than that because there was a person who was involved in the read-along that said some things on Twitter, and that's more drama than I need to talk about right now. So I ended up not continuing with the read-along, but I did read Elantris, and honestly, I was super disappointed by this. Everyone loves Brandon Sanderson, who reads him for the most part. I don't really hear a whole lot of like negative reviews on his books, so I was really excited for this, and it just really didn't live up to my expectations. I don't really know what it was about this book that I didn't like, but it is a very complicated story. So this is an adult fantasy, and we follow this girl who marries the like king of this new area. So I think she was a princess from a different area. She moves to the new area because she marries the king, and then when she arrives, the king dies, and so she has a lot of power but is like from another land. People don't necessarily trust her, all of that. So there is seemingly all this political intrigue that I did really like, but then on top of all of that, there's Elantris, which is like this quote-unquote underground city where people like are turned into kind of like zombie creatures. The way they were described reminded me a lot of the like zombie things from I Am Legend, Will Smith back in the day. It reminded me a lot of that. And anyways, so there's like people who in Elantris who are trying to prove that they're not just like mindless creatures. They're still people and they deserve rights and like something. And yeah, just considering the fact of how difficult this is to explain after I've already read it, something was lost on me and I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. And I do still want to read Brandon Sanderson, but I'm definitely like nervous too, because is this how they all are? Because it wasn't good enough to like keep reading books like this, but maybe I would try a different series and it would be better. I don't know. Moving on. I also read Enter the Ardvark. Now this one was an ARC, so I didn't read a finished copy, and I also DNF'd this book at like 50% in. This book is like political satire. It's also an adult novel, and this politician gets this stuffed taxidermy aardvark, which kind of looks like an anteater, and then he like it's a weird convoluted story too. Basically, like, he gets in trouble because he gets pulled over and they see this taxidermied aardvark, which is illegal to have. But like he was sent it by somebody else and he doesn't know who it was sent by, and like there's clearly some political commentary going on, but it was all so weird and like too much satire maybe for me to be like, what is going on? Maybe I don't know enough about politics, which I feel like I'm relatively well read, although now that I'm thinking about it, was it even based on American politics? Because if it was based on another like British politics or something, maybe that's why I didn't get it, but I'm pretty sure it was American. I'm pretty sure it was set on the East Coast, like the southern East Coast, like Georgia or something. I feel like they were also kind of like swapping certain like generally true things about political groups in order to like make a comment on it. Again, if it's this confusing after I read half of the book, like, then what was it about? Ooh, here's one that I feel like a lot of people either liked a lot or didn't like at all, and I fall into this book was boring category, which is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. And wow, I was really excited for this one, and it did not live up to any expectations. Even after already have heard mixed reviews, by the time I read this, I was like, I still had higher expectations than this gave me. So this book is a vampire book. It's set in like historical fiction New Orleans, which I just wanted to love the setting so much. For those of you who don't know, I did go to New Orleans in 2018 for New Year's, so I just wanted to be in it, and there's a lot of history there. And so I think, if I remember correctly, this is set in like 1800s, if I remember correctly. We have this main character, I don't even remember her name, and she meets this man who is kind of trying to woo her, and like literally, what is the plot? There isn't one. And we were all sold the idea that this was going to be a vampire book, and the fact that they're vampires doesn't even really show up until the very end of the novel, which is not a spoiler in my opinion, because like, why was this catered as if it was a vampire book when it's just a historical fiction with a plot twist? So what was it about? Like, again, I feel like that's a theme here in this video. Like, even after reading it, did it have a plot? I don't know. It didn't feel like one. It felt very boring, and like nothing was happening. They did talk a lot about the clothing in the historical fiction aspect, which I loved listening to, like the descriptions of the clothes. That felt very like beautiful, and it did bring me into that like vibe of what Renee Ahdieh I think was going for in setting it in this historical fiction New Orleans. But even then, like, I didn't feel like they gave like Renee Ahdieh like really encapsulated like New Orleans at all. It didn't really feel like we were there. It felt like we were in the 1800s, given the costumes and the way that stuff is described. But like, one, the way that they talked, it didn't feel like it was a historical fiction. And then also like, there was no real feeling of the ambiance of New Orleans. And even still today, New Orleans has a very distinct ambiance. So, and it has a lot of history that you could have pulled from, and it just wasn't there. I also started and did not finish The Yellow Bird Sings. This again was an ARC from NetGalley. This is a historical fiction from World War II, and we follow a mother and her daughter who are Jewish, and they're running from Nazis. This book is super slow paced. There's trigger warnings for sexual assault and rape as well, and torture, murder. Like, we know of characters who are murdered because they're Jewish and all of that stuff too. So just lots of trigger warnings for this book, but so slow, so slow. So we follow this mom. At the very start of the book, we know that the rest of the family has either been murdered or taken. We don't really know which. And so her and her daughter, they run. Her daughter is like 2 or something. She's little at the start of this book. And in the first 50% that I read, we pass like 6 or 7 years. And you would think that would make it feel rushed, but it wasn't rushed at all. We spend a lot of time in a barn, hiding out, being very quiet, being terrified that the daughter will make noise, or being terrified about who's going to come in, because again, trigger warning for sexual assault stuff, and getting caught, of course, too, in general. And it was just so slow. Very weird pacing. I did not enjoy it, so I didn't finish it. Okay, moving on. I also read 5 of Nights. This book, I think, was an arc from Readsy, if I remember correctly, and so I did finish it and write a review for it on Readsy. Readsy is this really cool website that you basically get paired with the author, so like you decide if you're going to read the book based on a synopsis, and I think you can read up to like 2 chapters or something before you decide. You're the only reviewer that reads that book before it comes out, and then your review is posted on the day of its release. It's all independent authors. So that website in general is really interesting to me. But yeah, so this book is called 5 of Nights, and we follow this girl in a world where nobody knows that there's people who have like special abilities, and so she has some sort of special ability, and we start off the novel with her. She's in her early 20s too, so it is a new adult, which I liked, and she's in prison for murdering someone, and then her lawyer turns out to not really be a lawyer and instead whisks her away to this land in the sky for her to train with other people so that they can hunt demons. It felt like it was trying to be like City of Bones, like that feeling of like we're in a group and we're training and then we're gonna go do things, and like they're kind of like missions to get these demons. But overall, what fell flat for me in this book was the characters. I hated the main character. She was an asshole, and it's really hard for me to like care that she's upset when she's the one doing the things that make her upset, and she's blaming everyone around her instead. What? Like, and there didn't feel like any character development to get her to the point where she realizes her mistakes that didn't happen. And then there's also like kind of a love interest, but it felt really, oh no, I didn't like it. I didn't like the way that the romance was happening. It felt gross and icky for some reason. Like, I feel like we weren't sure if they were related or not or something. Like, ugh. And then I'm pretty sure that he also was kind of also dating the ex-girlfriend of the main character. So there was like this weird, that kind of a love triangle that just felt a lot like cheating, and I didn't like it, and I didn't want to be anywhere near it. So moving on. My next book was You Must Not Miss. Now this book I actually did like. It's probably the most positive review you'll hear from me from these last 7 books, with 1 more to go. So this is Katrina Leno's second book that I've ever read of hers. This book follows a girl whose dad leaves her and her mom, and her mother is an alcoholic, and the contemporary part of this book felt really deep, and I did think it was so well done. The way that Magpie, our main character, describes experiencing her mother as an alcoholic, and the way that she like is reacting to that with like other people, and like deciding who or if she tells anyone and all that stuff, that all felt really well done. But Katrina Leno also always puts some like whimsy, magic-y part into her stories, which sometimes hits really well for me, like in Summer of Salt, and in other cases didn't hit really well with me, like in this one. So we have this girl who, so Magpie like somehow makes her way into her own created magical world. And it's kind of like her escape. And in that world, she's the creator, she's the god. So like she can do whatever she wants. And then slowly throughout the book, she starts bringing that magic into the real world, and things that happen and the people that she kind of takes revenge on or takes her anger out on didn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I didn't feel like our main character learned anything, because she's not a very likable character either. Not because, in this case, not because she's an asshole, but just because she really needs to have some growth. She's not okay. Like, she's going through these really tough things, and she's like spiraling out kind of. And we never really get anyone involved to help her, and she never helps herself either. And so like, it didn't feel good at all by the end of it. And I didn't like the ending. So moving on. Last book. Probably the most controversial book on the list. Yay. And my most recent read for this list. Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. So listen, me and Seanan McGuire don't get along all the time. I already knew that about her writing, but I had a lot of hope for this one. Just the way that it's described sounds so cool. It's about these two twins who are separated at birth, and they don't know that they're twins until later, and they basically have been created to be gods, and they have all of these powers, and there's like the politics behind that, who created them, like what's going on. It feels very much like Wolverine's story, or like, I don't know, those created superhumans. I always love that story, so it sounds so good. It sounds so good. But I also know that Seanan McGuire's writing in the Wayward Children series always just falls short for me, so I did try to go in knowing that might happen, but I'm honestly gonna let you know that because the Wayward Children's are so short and like they're more like novellas, I always thought that might be why, and so I really wanted to give this one a chance because it's a full-blown novel. Like, maybe she'll round whatever it is that's missing in the Wayward Children's out for me. That did not happen. I never felt like there was enough understanding of like the why behind what happened never made sense, or never was explained well enough for me. I loved our main characters. Roger and Dodger are so fun. I love their relationship. I love the interactions, the conflicts, and all of that happen between the two of them are so fun and entertaining and interesting. But all of that stuff, all of that intrigue behind the why they were created and who they were created for and everything, like, where is it? Because it wasn't in the book. Those are 7 really the most disappointing books. I mean, yeah, a couple of them were bad enough for me to DNF, but most of them were just like not what I wanted, or I wanted way more than what I got from them. So that's the 7 books that really disappointed me in 2020. I almost said 2019. Good God, I wish. Except that would mean that there'd be a whole nother year of this left. So maybe I don't wish that. Wow. I always am hoping that in the following year I will read less and less disappointing or not good books. But of course, sometimes you are just going to think that a book is going to be up your alley and it isn't. So that's normal and totally fine. The fact that I only had 7 out of the like 67 books I've read this year, I would say that's like pretty good. I'm getting way better and better at learning like what kind of reads do I really like, what plots versus what style of writing and all that. I feel like I'm getting to know myself more and more as time goes on, even as like my tastes do change slightly throughout the years. So yeah, short little video of my disappointing reads of 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed and got something out of this. And for everyone that is still listening to all of the craziness that's going on Twitter, just remember that like all of reviews are opinions, not facts. There is very little objective truth to an opinion about a book rating. Like, it's not objective, quite frankly. It's always subjective, and everyone's opinions are going to be different. So just like keep that in mind always. And that's gonna be the end of this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I am filming every day up until Christmas or the day after Christmas or something, and then my schedule will be changing and I haven't decided on what that looks like, but there's a lot of new content that's going to be coming out and a lot of new plans. I have a readathon in the works coming up that I haven't announced yet, but it's going to be called Touching My Shelf, so more to come on that. I officially have decided that the Goodreads 2020 winners will be the theme of the book club that I'm trying to start hosting, and the first book for that read-along book club will be The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The goal of that book club is to have all of us pick the next book and all of us pick the date of each book club together on Zoom. So I haven't made the Zoom room yet, and I haven't decided on a date for the Addie LaRue live show, but it'll be sometime at the end of January, probably. End of January, maybe the first weekend of February, it depends. So yeah, with that, I hope you guys are having a great week. It's almost Christmas, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new one. Peace out. Bye.